Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about Chiron transiting the third house in a natal chart. Now, on average, Chiron will traverse a house for approximately 4 years. However, if your house size is a little bit larger than average, then Chiron will be in there for a little bit of a longer duration. If your house size is a little bit smaller than average, then Chiron will be in there for a little bit of a shorter period. Well, anyway, people, first thing I'll look at when Chiron transits one's natal third house is that, well, there could be some emotional wounds and suffering connected with communication. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to suffer some kind of impairment with your speech or lose your ability to speak, although I think it can the propensity for this can increase a little bit, considering that Chiron is about wounds. Sometimes it could be physical. More often than not, I believe it is emotional, and the third house does govern communications. However, in a lot of cases, this could simply mean that maybe you don't really make yourself readily understood. Maybe you have a little bit harder time during this period articulating your thoughts and assimilating information, processing information. Maybe maybe it's like information overload. Maybe you're just trying to absorb too much almost simultaneously. It could be a time where you maybe you make statements that are ambiguous or might be misconstrued by others. The third house is also about the rational mind, so it might be a period where maybe there's some suffering due to more rational thinking than usual. This could be also a period where there might be some difficulties with siblings if you do have them. Maybe the situation with them becomes somewhat combative or contentious, disputatious. Maybe there's some suffering due to things being misunderstood with them, maybe miscommunications with siblings if you do have them. There might be some problems perhaps with neighbors during this time. If you're somebody that doesn't have any siblings, it could be a period perhaps that maybe this suffering maybe resurfaces. There can be perhaps some persistent maybe the problem resurfacing connected with not having them maybe causes some despondency at this time. Maybe there's some old wounds resurfacing connecting with communication problems in the past. If by chance somebody if you're having this, say you're having this transit, and or you know someone that's having this transit and they are still, say they're in high school, or they're in early education, even in grade school somewhere, maybe junior high, even elementary school, I guess what I'm saying. Now there might be some difficulties with that, maybe in connection with that, because the third house is about the early education. So in those instances, they may be going through maybe some difficulties as far as that goes during the time of this transit. But on the positive side, this could indicate that you could help others in matters with communications. You could be somebody that maybe works as a translator during this transit. Maybe you decide to do something connected with this, help others speak maybe another language. It could be somebody that might help others just enhance their own vocabulary in their own language and help them become more articulate, helping others maybe with grammar or maybe with their English, how they're speaking, or whatever language it might be. Maybe helping, it could even be something else connected with communications, like with computers, for example. Even somebody helping someone learn the fundamentals of the internet, for example, or something with information technology, helping others, maybe doing something in terms of actually fixing their computer. If there's a malicious virus on it, you could be that person that might really be apt to help that person out as far as that goes. Someone's computer goes haywire, you might be the person that comes to their aid. At the same time, keep in mind that Chiron represents, it's the wounded healer. So you might be experiencing some suffering in that area as well if you have a computer, which many of you do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching this unless you're seeing this on someone else's computer or you're at a library or something, but most of you, I believe, do have your own computer. And this could be a time where your own computer might be going through more problems than usual because the computer is connected with communications. Keep in mind that the third house is also associated with short journeys and transportation. So you might have maybe some more problems perhaps with commuting than usual during this time. I had a friend of mine, I don't know his time of birth, but as far as his solar chart goes, had Chiron likely either conjunct his third, transiting Chiron conjunct his third house from the second, or in the third house by transit in Pisces, and he apparently had hurt his foot during this time. And it affected his short journeys, which is the third house, and Pisces does rule the feet. I understand the first house is what corresponds with the physical body, but you could still, in some instances, I believe, because Chiron is associated with physical wounds as well as emotional wounds, you could have something physical happen in connection with that particular house, perhaps in some instances. Though mainly it's the first house, I believe, is where you're more apt to get physical wounds because that is the first house, does govern the physical body. Well, anyway, it's also important to look at the aspects, if any, that are made by this transit to your natal planets and points, as this could impact the transit. Now, let's say, for example, that let's say a transiting Chiron is making a sextile or trine to your natal Mars. Well, this could be auspicious for a positive blending of helping and healing and energy, energy applied to this. Now, being in the third, this could be connected perhaps with communication or doing something connected with transportation, such as mechanical work on a car, perhaps for somebody. Let's say, take another example, let's say that transiting Chiron is making a square in conjunct or opposition to your natal Jupiter. Well, this could be where you're helping, healing others, may conflict perhaps with some long distance travel plans and maybe even higher education pursuits. And being in the third, maybe this is tied in to some problems connected, or maybe I should say helping siblings, or maybe even neighbors. Well, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for Chiron transiting the third house in the natal chart. And stay tuned next time, where I will be talking about Chiron transiting the fourth house in the natal chart. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person astrologically speaking based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.